So hi, my name's Vulan. I'm one of the con-chairs for immigration. Panels are kind of my thing. I really enjoy them. I've been working programming prior to taking over as con-chair this year, and I've always enjoyed panels and programming and this kind of stuff. I have some interesting experiences, and I've done some silly things in the fandom, and I like to share those experiences with all of you, and hopefully you can take something from those and not make the mistakes I've made. So if I can convince Clever to come down here at some point, am I going to be able to convince him to come down here? Yes or no? He's busy. I'm going to guess not. So kind of one of the things that we'll talk about in this panel is obviously traveling. But with conventions all over the country and all over the world, and many destinations that we want to go to, getting to those things. And I'm kind of going to focus on traveling for conventions because we have these stupid giant costumes that are really expensive and really valuable and really hard to travel with, and that makes it a little bit tricky. But some tips and tricks just for in general getting places. So to poll all of you, raise your hand. Did you drive here? What about people who flew here? So a couple here. My background, my day job, I'm an airline pilot, so aviation is my thing, and I travel more than I probably should. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about driving and trains as well, because I like trains, for those that get the reference. Just different methods of getting to and from, especially for conventions. Let's talk driving, because that's kind of our con theme this year of road trips. Good morning. So some things to think about when you're driving to or from a convention. I'm really big about, I like planning this stuff out. Google Maps is very much my friend whenever I do road trips, figuring out gas stops, figuring out where you want to stop along the way, looking for interesting places to go, but also getting an idea of cities along your route, because maybe you'll have some unscheduled stops. Hopefully they're because you wanted to do them and not your vehicle decided we're doing this now. Other things when you're doing like road trips or those kinds of things, if you're bringing other people, figuring out packing for all those things. I've talked about this in fursuiting panels, people with cars, and you're thinking we're going to road trip to this convention, and we all have our fursuits on here. We're going to throw them up on the back shelf behind the back seat so they're looking out the back window, and that sounds like such a great idea, and everyone can see our fursuits, and they're sitting out in the hot sun for a day at a time, or sometimes multiple days, depending on how long your drive is. That is terrible for fursuits. I know a friend that one of the fursuit that they had made, they ran out of the high temp hot glue halfway through building the head and needed to finish it, so they switched to low temp hot melt glue. It got left in a car on a summer day, and half of the head just kind of slid off. So caring for your fursuit, it is kind of cool to be able to show them and that kind of stuff, but insides of cars are not the best environment for them to stay in. I always try to be careful of that. If I'm leaving them, if I'm stopping in a hotel somewhere, I'll make sure that I bring my fursuit towed in just so it's not left in the car for any extended period of time. Also, kind of a caveat here for panels, I always like getting questions because it helps me tailor what I'm talking about, but I can't now see most of you. So just shout out if you've got a question or something to interject. You're not going to hurt my feelings with that. No, I cannot give people free tickets. I can't get myself free tickets. That's not how that works. I wish. I guess any initial questions so far, or any experiences that you've had with road tripping? Yep. Break-ins are definitely a thing if you're leaving your vehicle overnight. I mean, if you're staying in a hotel room or something like that, it's kind of a pain. You don't necessarily want to empty out your entire vehicle, but think about that when you pack it. If you have all your valuables, computers, any electronics, If it's not in plain view, that helps. Also, if you can leave it, pack it last so it's on top, so it's the first thing you can take out. Because I guarantee you, if you're packing up a vehicle for a road trip, the most important thing you're going to need is on the bottom of everything. And we've done that before. Yeah, don't leave valuables in a vehicle. If you're parked somewhere overnight, bring them inside with you. Try to get them locked up, or at least, at the very least, outside of view. That's definitely something important. My daily driver is a pickup truck, and I've got a cover on the bed, which is nice, but the cover is just fabric. Somebody could take a knife and get into it. It's a little bit of a deterrent because nobody can see what's in there, but it wouldn't really stop somebody that was actually wanting to get into that. So definitely something to think about. Anything else from anyone? I'm also stalling so I can re-energize for the rest of the day. Perfect. Are you going to come help? Oh, that works too. Yeah. So, good point. I forget we're streaming online too. Hello, internet. Let's see. More road trip fun. One of the things that I used to do, I used to live in eastern North Dakota, and going down to Midwest Fur Fest, it's about a 12-hour drive on a good day. We would plan to leave Wednesday night, road trip overnight, and get down there Thursday morning, because we're furries and we're stupid, and wasting any amount of time at a convention is a bad idea. So we want to maximize our time there. Except you show up Thursday morning, you've just been driving for 12 hours overnight, and you are so dead tired. And then the other part of that, when you think about it, it's, the drive down, it'll be fine because you're motivated. You're going to get to go to the convention. You're excited for the weekend. And then Monday morning rolls around and you're like, I have to go back. It's not as much fun. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, don't own a manual transmission vehicle because you're going to have to teach all of your friends how to drive it. Ask me how I know. The other road trip fun. So let's talk about trains. It's not really a common travel method. Who here has taken a long trip on a train? Doesn't have to be super long, but I mean, yeah, so that's fine. It's not like as common here in the States for trains as a mode of transportation. Anybody who's been to Japan, or really a lot of European countries, it's much more common over there. But it's still a viable method over here. It is slower, but it's been a while since I've been on one, but I know they're doing a lot to kind of improve the rideability of the travel and bringing that back as a really viable method. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, and it can be, if it becomes part of your trip, that's part of the journey. It can be a very enjoyable part of the experience. If you're on a time crunch, if taking extra days off of work or something like that becomes more critical to you, it's not necessarily the best method, but those are definitely things to do. And still bringing luggage with you is definitely something you can do. So traveling with a fursuit or something like that is definitely an option. Airplanes, obviously my favorite thing. But so we'll talk a little bit about that and traveling with fursuits. So I always break this down into planning for the trip, getting to the airport, how to get through an airport, all of the things that I see. And trust me, I see so many things as airline crew of what people do in airports. And some of it's kind of hilarious. Some of it I just roll my eyes at. With airfare, I'm not the expert at purchasing tickets because I don't do it very often. I cannot tell you how our airfare system works, and I don't think anybody at my company can. I'm pretty sure it's a dartboard every time you go to buy a ticket. One of the big things is if you can purchase tickets more than 30 days prior, there's always a big jump at 30 days. So as long as you're planning for a trip more than a month out, you don't want to wait till that last month. That's when you start to see the ramp up in prices. Sometimes that won't happen. Sometimes markets aren't selling very well and they'll keep prices low to try to fill up the The other thing is this last year has completely demolished how we do this. The market is just so weird right now. I actually do, Clever, if you can, spend a little bit of time. Do you want to talk loyalty programs? Is your mic muted?
Yep, so for the airlines, if you do happen to travel with them any amount, it's recommended to sign up with their loyalty programs just so you do earn your reward points. It also helps if you are staying with one, it gives you priority for if the unfortunate things happen where there are, delays, cancellations, anything like that. The more you've flown with that airline, the more preference you're going to have on that standby list for making the next flight. So the person who doesn't have any loyalty or hasn't signed up for it is stuck at the bottom of the list, and sometimes just that little bit of help is all you need to get onto that flight. And well, the other perk of free tickets for flying a few tickets here and there is also pretty nice.
Yeah, and for the times that my friends have been like, hey, I need an extra segment to make the next step, I'm going to come out this weekend. It's like, okay. Mileage runs are always kind of a funny thing to me. There's a lot of resources out there for planning your trips. There's a lot of really good websites out there that allow you to search multiple airlines. A couple of caveats on this. Number one, you can't search every airline. Southwest, for example, does not show up on any of those, Kayak and Travelocity and Priceline, whatever. They don't show up on any of them. They make you go to their site. That's how they've chosen to do it. I will use some of those sites just simply to see what options are out there, just simply to see what trips there are. Never buy your tickets there, because as soon as something happens on this trip and you've got to contact, you call up the airline and say, hey, this happened, they're going to pull up your reservation, they're going to see you bought it through a third party, and they'll say, have fun, and you've got to now contact that third party that has to go, it very much complicates it. Go find the schedule, figure out which airline you want to go with, then go directly to their website and buy it through them. It saves you so much headache in the long run. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
My employer found out that the hard way with Orbitz, and if you have to change your flight, prepare for a 2-hour phone call minimum.
Yeah, it very much complicates, and if you're already, you don't want to cut into your convention weekend. You've already got a lot going on. Trying to focus on getting to the convention, make your travel a little bit easier. I always suggest book directly through the airline. Packing for a flight, it's a little bit easy. Like Furry Migration, I guess first of all, who here has been to conventions before? This is not your first con. When y'all were packing up for this weekend, were you like, what is a convention? How do I do this? Because I know I was, just trying to remember how to pack everything. I have the advantage, I live 30 minutes down the road, so if I forget anything, I'm just going to go home. But if you're flying across the country, you don't really have that option. And I've always said, because this has always happened, no trip is complete without a trip to Walmart, because you're going to forget something and you have to go pick it up. But trying to pack for it, lists are your friend. I, 2 weeks ago, started making a Google Keep list of everything I need to pack up for this weekend. Fursuits, I kind of have a standard way that I pack these, and we'll go over this in a second. And then for your clothes and all of that stuff, whatever suitcase you're going to bring on. I actually probably should have brought my suitcase. That would have been another good thing to show. But having that kind of in an organized way. Again, think about the fact that what you need most, you're going to want to get out first. So think about how you're ordering when you pack that stuff. Couple of tips and tricks and things I always bring. I got on Amazon some really big shoe bags or some small laundry bags. That's a good thing, especially if you're rooming with multiple people in a con, so you don't end up with dirty clothes thrown everywhere by Monday. Just have a bag to throw your stuff in throughout the weekend, and then you just take that bag, shove it back in your suitcase, you're good to go. So that's one of those little tips that I have. For fursuits, this was not my first fursuit tote by any stretch. I finally decided I've got a couple of 4-digit figures worth of fursuits. I could spend a couple $100 on a nice tote. This is definitely not necessarily something that you have to do. One of the first totes I used, Walmart, for $25, I think, probably up to 30 now. But for 25 or 30 bucks, they have a hinged lid foot locker. I think it's Sterilite that makes it. Every Walmart I've been to has this tote. It's the nice thing with the hinged lid is, so a lot of people use action packers, which are great. They're really durable. They're really strong. The problem is there's two latches and the lid comes off. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I've definitely seen where they had taken the bag tag and stuck it to the lid, and now there's the baggage belt and there's just the lid because it had gotten separated from the rest. They eventually found the rest of their fursuit, but the nice thing of the hinged lid is it's not easy for this to come off. So that's kind of the advantage of that. And you only need one lock in order to lock this. So making sure you use TSA-approved locks. Not that they're the easiest things in the world to pick, because they are. But at least that way, it's kind of, again, it's not really going to stop somebody that's actually trying to get into it, but it's at least a deterrent for, you know, the average person to not try to break into your tote. So for packing suits, and I very quickly threw everything in here because my plan was to show you all kind of some tips and tricks for packing a suit. Some things to think about. Space bags. These are really, really useful. Be careful with fur and foam, putting these in these and sucking it down too tightly. It can wrinkle the fur. But if you just, especially for things like tails or anybody with digigrade legs, the leg padding, throw these in there and just squish it down lightly, not enough to deform it. And especially if I'm doing this, I'm putting it in the bag, I'm flying somewhere, and then the first thing I do is I pull this out and I open it back up. So it's just a temporary, to give it a couple of hours so I can fit everything in here. This is a good method. They make the travel ones that you just press on or roll. This one is supposed to go to a vacuum cleaner. They also make small hand pumps that you can use for that, and those work really well. This is a good option. Some other things. How many times have you gotten to a con and realized you don't have a belt for a fursuit tail? Because I've definitely done that. I always carry a spare belt at cons. I'll usually keep a few. Or you have a friend that forgot theirs. So these are nice things to have. I'm not sure what this is. I don't know why you would want this. And Under Armour, balaclavas, those kinds of things, you definitely want to make sure you have multiple pairs of, especially if you're going to be suiting for a lot on a weekend. Small stuff like this is really easy to pack later because it can fit into kind of the nooks and crannies of the bag. So I always set kind of that stuff to the side and start with the larger items first. So in the case of most suits, it's going to be the feet. These are also going to be the dirtier part of the suit. You don't really want to have this sitting right up against the fursuit head. So I always try to put the feet paws in first and ideally down or on the sides facing out. I don't have a good way to like show this off, but you guys get the idea. Any questions so far, I guess? You're too quiet.
Well, you could tell them what happened to your suit for improper packing.
Yeah. That was my fault. I had my fursuit packed with some other equipment. I was flying up to Alaska when I was living up there for a little while, and I had a radio with me, pretty large one. And I had that at the bottom of the box because it was the heaviest thing, but that was also the thing that TSA wanted to see. So they pulled it out, they inspected it, and they put it back in on top of the box. Not this fursuit, but one of my other suits is a resin head. By the time I got there, the radio had sat on it, pinned it up against the side, and snapped the jaw. So proper packing is important, but you can't stop what the TSA is going to do if they open up your tote. I normally have a laminated card that I carry with me when I'm traveling, and it goes right on the top. Some people will tape it to the top of their lid, and it says, big, bold, red, all caps letters, attention TSA. And I hope they read it. I'm pretty sure they don't. But I say, this is a valuable handmade mascot costume. It is packed in a certain way to protect it. Please contact me if you have any questions. I'll put my phone number on here. Another trick, some people will take a copy of their itinerary and they'll put it in here so they know what flights it's supposed to go on. Also helps if the bag gets lost. They can use that to help identify whose it is. And then another thing, if you know your suit, you figured out the right way to pack it, take pictures of that. And that can, pictures or drawings or something to show them, okay, this is how to pack it. So I have a contact information. They've never actually called me, but I try. And then if you're using a non-TSA lock, but you're using zip ties to secure it, tape a couple of zip ties on the top here. So if they cut the zip tie to open your bag, most of the time they'll grab the zip ties to re-secure them, especially with those action packers, because you have to have both sides locked or else it will come open. Having a couple of zip ties is the real trick there. Tails are really good as insulation. It's good packing material because it's nice and squishy and they're flexible, and so you can wrap them around things. So these usually weight a little bit. Obviously, the most important part is the head, and typically the most fragile on most of the suits. So the aim for this is to have it to be the central most part of the tote, not have it up against the side or the top or whatever where it's going to get hit the hardest. Have it right smack dab in the middle. And this is where you can start filling in on the sides with some stuff. And then your bodysuit, again, good packing material. I mean, fursuiters know how well the bodysuit insulates them. So it works quite well as protection for fursuit heads as well. This is a lot harder to do one-handed. One of the things I always tell people to aim for is, so who in here has a fursuit? I guess I probably should have asked that. A few of you, that's good. Anytime you're traveling with something valuable. Like, I know when I first got my first suit, and it was just super gentle with it and really careful, because I just spent a lot of money on something that is really important to me. I'm going to do what I can to take care of it. And now I know how durable they are, and I'm not quite so worried. But we're always really careful of our suits. But does a package handler know what's in here? No. Do they care? No. Can I slap fragile stickers on every square inch of this thing and they will definitely heed that and not do anything stupid with it? No. So I always tell people, if you cannot pack up your fursuit and do that to it and be completely comfortable doing that, you need to repack it. You have to know, we kind of call them bag smashers for a reason, our baggage handlers. They've got a job to do, and we kind of overwork them moving these boxes around. So don't expect that they're going to be nice to your tote. Be prepared for the fact that it's going to come up with some scratches and dents and dings on it. It's going to happen. The system is not nice to them. If you need to make sure that it's cared for, this becomes your carry-on. Now, obviously, this is way too big to be a carry-on. But if I broke this up, if I put all of my clothes in here, and I took the fursuit and put it in my suitcase, and I took the head and that became my carry-on item, I can do that. I personally don't really want to, because I don't want to carry a fursuit through the airport. The chance of me running into a coworker is kind of high, so I'm not running that risk. But for a lot of people, that is an option. So let's talk about that for a second. Bringing a fursuit through TSA, you're going to get questions. They're going to be interested. A lot of times it's good-natured. They just want to know what this is. Fursuit heads with fans or LEDs or any electronics in them look interesting on X-ray. They're going to want to see more. Oftentimes, they just want to open it up, maybe run a swab through the inside, test it, and you're good to go. Fursuit heads with silicone noses. Nice and squishy, great. Silicone does not look good on X-ray. It's dense. It's the same as C4. Like plastic explosives and silicone look the same.
Yeah, you put silicone anywhere in your bag, you're going to get inspected.
Almost a guarantee. But only fursuit noses are the only silicone things that people would be putting in their bags, of course. We're not going to get into that. There are interesting stories. How many TSA agents have you broken?
Oh, a good number.
Yeah.
Also, you might want to mention that while you can't wear the head because it's a mask, you can wear the body through. As long as you don't have sharp claws.
We've been seeing this on Twitter. Somebody had that. It's like, well, you can't wear the head through, but nothing's stopping you from wearing the rest of your fursuit through security and on the airplane. There is no, I mean, there's a dress code, but that meets the dress code. And so there are people that have worn their fursuit through and carried the head or really put it on through the airport. Because you can. That's fine. That is acceptable. You're going to get some looks, but it is, as long as it doesn't interfere you getting on and off the airplane, we can't really say anything about it. Let's see. Getting to the airplane, getting on the airplane, with or without a fursuit, if you've brought it through. Don't be gate lice. We make the comment, the people who are like, the airplane just arrived, we still have to deplane, clean, cater, turn it around, load everybody back up. Like, it's going to be an hour before we even start boarding, and there's already people standing in line. Don't be those people, please. Just sit down, be comfy. It'll be a little bit. We won't leave without you as long as you're there when we call for you. If you're carrying a fursuit head on, as your, so you got a suitcase and you've got your fursuit head. Those are your two personal items. You're allowed to on most carriers, especially I think it's American Airlines. If you have the basic economy, you only get one item. You only get the carry-on. You don't get a suitcase.
That's actually all of them now.
Well, not Delta.
Okay.
We still get two. Okay. Yeah, so there are a lot of airlines. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to what you're allowed to carry on for the airline. Make sure you follow those rules. We do check. Yes, some people may slip through, or a gate agent may not notice, but don't test it. Don't assume that you're going to be able to get something through. That's not going to go over well. If you have a fursuit head as your small personal item, that's what is supposed to go underneath the seat in front of you. I know we clean our airplanes, and now we're sanitizing them after every flight. That doesn't mean they're clean, especially the floors. They're gross. If you are bringing a fursuit head, I suggest putting it in like a pillowcase or a bag or something to protect it in case it does need to be put underneath the seat in front of you. Sometimes people will be okay holding, some flight crews will be okay with you holding it in your lap. I do know a few people that they were intending to hold it in their lap, and the flight attendant said, can't have that there. And they said, can I put it on? And sure. So for takeoff and landing, they were required to wear their fursuit head. That's made for some interesting photos. One of the other options is that will have to go up in the overhead bin. Problem with that is the acceleration of takeoff and the deceleration of landing, bags will tend to slide. My suggestion there is, if you can, put it at the front of a bin for takeoff, and then in flight, move it to the back of the bin for landing so bags don't crush it against any of the walls. That would just kind of be my suggestion there if you have a fursuit head with you in travel. Arriving at your destination, going through, dealing with baggage claim, trying to get your bags back. That's really the main reason this is such a bright, obnoxious color. It's so I can see it from halfway across the airport, and I can see it in baggage claim. That just makes it a little bit easier. Fursuit totes, because they tend to be larger, it's kind of a 50-50 shot of if an airport is going to send this on the regular belt or if they're going to consider this oversized baggage. So if you get to baggage claim, you don't see your tote, you're wondering where it is, did it get lost? Oh my goodness, go check oversized baggage. It might be there. That's happened before as well. Has this brought up any questions? Anything? Nothing. Say again? Oh, going to which? Going to oversized? Yeah. It depends on where it is. Like, I know Minneapolis here, this will go through a regular belt, but some other airports I've been to, it's almost guaranteed it's going to go to oversized. So it depends on the airport and the operations. Also pay attention to the size of the baggage. This particular tote is really nice because it is a half an inch underneath the airline's limit for size. And they do it, you take the length, the width, and the height of the bag, add them together, it has to be less than 62 inches. But every airline's a little bit different, so check with your airline to see what's allowed. I know people that have the, the size or two sizes up from this. It's a little bit nicer to fit a bigger fursuit in, especially full suit with digigrade padding, and if you're bringing other stuff or, trying to fit other things in. But though they don't often check size, weight is the big thing they check. You don't want to risk getting the oversized baggage fees, because in some airline cases, they are extremely steep.
Speaking of overweight, sometimes it's less expensive to upgrade to a first class ticket and get your extra pounds that way than
Yep.
paying the overweight fee.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's another trick. So for most airlines, for coach class, it's a 50-pound limit. And if you have a first class ticket, they'll raise that to 75 pounds. They'll give you a little bit of extra baggage allowance in the weight. And so there are cases where instead of paying a round trip overweight fee, it can be cheaper, just dependent on a round trip upgrade. It might actually be cheaper. And then you get first class out of the deal. So that's just another thing to think about.
Yep, and it's based on only the first segment when you're checking the bag, so you don't have to upgrade the full ticket either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're doing multiple segments, it's just the first one, because now it's already in the system. They're not going to charge you for the next one. It's just for that one. It's a good point. I'm going to run out of content to talk about. Y'all better come up with some questions. Yes.
When it comes to layovers, what do you think is like a, let's say, acceptable layover time?
So I used to work for a small airline that flew in and out of Boston, and we dumped off right in JetBlue's terminal. And so you could actually book a ticket through us onto JetBlue with a 15-minute connection, because we drop you off right inside of security right next to your gate. So you can make a really, really tight connection. If you had to go to another airline, you're going to another terminal, and 45 minutes was a tight connection. And we had somebody that had booked a 10-minute connection onto a different airline. And I was like, go ahead and call them now, because you're not going to make it. And it's like, well, it's right there. It's just, the next gate over. I'm like, no, it's the next terminal over. And that takes 15 minutes to walk to the entrance of security there. Acceptable layover time really depends on the airport. It depends on the conditions. It depends on you. If you're okay, anybody who's familiar with Minneapolis, going from F12 to B12, which is corner to corner, and it's, I think, 1.3 miles, in 15 minutes, if you're okay with running that, because I've done it, I don't want to do it again, that's acceptable. But a smaller airport, you can take a tighter connection because you will not have as far to go, and it may not be as busy. But trying to do a 15-minute connection in Atlanta, for example, or Chicago, good luck. 15-minute connection in O'Hare versus a 15-minute connection in Midway are two different things to worry about because of the size of the airport. Those are definitely things. So really it depends. There are minimums that the airline will not allow you to book under. The other thing to consider is, and you won't know this planning out on a trip, but if there's inclement weather in the area and flights are delayed, there's maybe a case where your inbound flight is delayed, but your outbound flight is not. Don't expect the airline to hold a flight for you. You may luck out. I know people that have. They were making a connection, but so were 20 other people on the same airplane. And that was half of the airplane they were getting on, so it was worth the airline holding it. That's very rare that we do that. So really, it's if you're comfortable with a short connection, and if it's a smaller airport, you can take shorter ones. But if it were a difference between a 45-minute and a 4-hour connection for me, I'm comfortable taking a 45-minute connection kind of thing. But if it was a difference between a 45-minute and an hour-and-a-half connection in Atlanta, for example, I'd probably plan the hour-and-a-half. And especially if you have loyalty on the airline and a same-day standby is an option, you could, hey, if I make it in early, I'll go to the earlier flight, I'll see if I can stand by and get on it. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the bar and have a drink, or go get lunch and that kind of stuff. So those are things to consider. Yeah, good question. Anyone else? Yes. Yep.
So I don't know if you had the same experience as I have, but have you ever go to select a flight and you hit the refresh button and it jumps up $20?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I like to do is open up a browser in incognito mode. And it stops those prices from jumping. So it kind of helps you get a better idea as to where you find your flights or where you can get your flights.
As you search, they do track. If you're constantly watching the same flight versus somebody who's just looking up a flight for the first time, that changes the pricing strategy. And again, I can't tell you how we plan our prices. I have no idea. I think we make it up every time. But I do know that there's quite a lot of evidence that repeat watching of the same flight can raise the price of it, because they know if we raise the price, we're going to get you on it because you're going to buy it early. And it's not necessarily to get you to pay more money, it's to get you to pay sooner and go ahead and get you confirmed and booked on that flight, yeah. And now through COVID, a lot of airlines have released their change fees. They've changed that structure, so that's completely different. And I cannot tell you how any of those are, because every airline's a little bit different, and it's all changed over the last year. Did Hawk have any questions? Just because I wanted to throw him in the spot. Let's see. I couldn't tell you. This is a Pelican 1637. Yeah, 1637. You can get these on Amazon. This is not. This is a half an inch under the oversized limit, at least for most of the major carriers. Yeah, it's just right underneath that threshold, which is why I got it, and it's also why they make this the size that they do. So for the size of the case, it's the best volume to still meet the limitations and be able to fit. I can fit a full digigrade suit in here. If I space bag the foam to squish it down, I slide that in the bottom, feet on top of that, head in the middle. Same way I packed this one. I can do that with one of my full suits without any issue. Thanks. How are we on time? We're doing okay. Trying to think of any fun horror stories. Clever, do you have any?
None I could tell in this panel.
That's fair. Should do an after dark travel panel. That would be interesting.
The only other thing I think of is, you probably haven't mentioned yet, in your fursuit crate, don't pack any liquids.
Yeah, don't. The only like aerosols that I bring in here is I have a thing of dry shampoo, because that's pretty safe to carry. And for anybody, like, aerosols are safe on an airplane. Even the pressurization changes, it's nowhere near significant enough. Liquids, especially anything in a non-like screw top lid, if it's like a flip top lid, that can be enough to pop the thing open. I had a backpack get filled with ranch dressing because of that, because I had a little container of my lunch that popped open and went everywhere. But liquids in here, they can get crushed or they can pop open, and suddenly you have all over your fursuit. Yeah, definitely suggest not doing that. And just kind of be aware, like I said earlier, I had some radio equipment in here that ended up leading to one of my heads getting broken. If you can, pack that stuff in a different case. You know, pack that stuff or carry it on or whatever. Try to leave your fursuit tote to just be your fursuit. And then if you have any open space in your bag, fill it with clothes. You don't want to have it so tightly packed that nothing can move, because then any impact is going to be carried through. But you don't want to have a bunch of open space that stuff can slap around in there. Another thing I just thought of, some people use soft-sided bags, so like hockey bags for fursuits, especially for foam heads that are a little bit more durable. And that's totally an option too. And there's actually an advantage to doing that. If I'm a baggage handler and I've got a bunch of duffel bags or hockey bags and that kind of stuff, soft bags, and then I've got a bunch of suitcases and hard plastic totes, these are going to go on the bottom. I can guarantee that this is one of the first bags they're going to grab and one of the things they're going to put on the bottom underneath the stack of everything else. Now, that's why I go with the Pelican case, you know, or some durable hard case like this, because it'll handle having 100, 200 pounds of stuff stacked on top of it. Whereas a soft-sided bag, they're not normally going to do that. Those are going to go on top of everything, so you have a better chance of those not getting crushed by other stuff. So it's just a trade-off, but those are definitely valid options to think about.
So one other thing I did think of, when they are checking your bag, do make sure that they put the extra barcodes on your sides and the lid, so if anything gets detached,
Yep.
They can identify it based on the barcodes. And hopefully you never see the back of that baggage claim ticket, but they should never ask you to sign that. If they're asking you to sign it, then you need to be sure to ask them why, because that is the limited release for anything that they think that they cannot handle correctly, and waivers their liability for any damages at all to it.
Yeah, those are two good things. So when they take the baggage tag and they wrap it around a handle or something like that, this is also the advantage of something with an actual handle. That tag wrapped around is a lot more durable than one just stuck on the side. So I always make sure they wrap it around the handle. Although I did have a time when one of the Walmart plastic totes I had, the handle came off, and it was, fortunately, I'm guessing somebody saw it when it happened, because the handle was in the tote when I got it and got it opened up. But on the end of that baggage tag are 2 or 3 small little strips. We call them bingo tags. Ask the baggage handler, or ask the counter agent if they can put those extra tags on the bag. I'll have, you know, the main tag on the handle, and I'll put one on the side of the case, and I'll put one on the lid, just if they ever get separated. The trick with those, when you get to your destination, make sure you peel all of those off. Don't leave them on, because then, though they can figure out that, you know, okay, this was for a trip a month ago, so it's not for today, it just adds to the complexity, makes it a little bit harder on them. So make sure you remove all of those stickers from on it. But yeah, definitely make sure that you have those just in case the bag tag goes missing, or in the case of what I found out, the handle itself went missing. Yeah, definitely do that. And then the liability waiver, yeah, they need to have a good reason to have you sign that, so definitely ask them before you did something like that. Any last minute questions before we wrap up here?
Have you ever shipped a bag? Like if you actually had a friend or someone at close to the destination and just ship it FedEx
Right.
or UPS or something like that?
And that's a completely valid option, is putting it in a box and shipping it, you know, UPS or FedEx or something like that. I have not personally done that, but I know plenty of people that have. The other thing you can do is, if you've got a hotel reservation and it's in your name, call the hotel and say, hey, I want to ship a box to you. Where do I send it? And they'll tell you, and you'll just put, you know, your name or your reservation number, whatever they have you do, in where you're in the shipping information, and they'll hold it for you. When you check in, there's your fursuit waiting for you. That is completely valid and has been done quite a lot. And that's an easy way if you are traveling in a method where you can't easily bring it with you. That's another thing to look into. It might be a little bit expensive, you know, shipping via some courier, but it definitely makes it easier. Another thing to do is, when you do that, go ahead and buy the return sticker as well, so you can just repack it up and stick it and have it shipped back when you leave the convention or whatever.
Hey, here's a good one for you that I just thought last minute. But international travel and customs.
Always fun.
And taxes.
Yes. Well, and when I ran into going to Eurofurence, and we went Minneapolis to Amsterdam, connected to Berlin, but it was a split connection, so the bags couldn't be checked all the way through. So we had to, on a 3-hour connection, get off the airplane, go through customs, go to baggage claim, pick up our totes, run back upstairs, recheck our bags for the next flight, then go through security and get to the airplane. We made it with plenty of time, which was nice, but customs can be interesting. Every country's a little bit different. Understand how those processes work. There's a lot of resources online for whatever country you're going to, so you can go ahead and look through what the procedures are going to be. Make sure you have all your documentation with you. But I've traveled with Suits International. It's not all that difficult. It's just be aware of the procedures, be aware of what you have to do, and kind of the additional customs procedures. The other thing is not TSA over there, but their airport security is actually really good. And if you have stuff in your bag you're not allowed to have, they're gonna find it. Like 99% chance you can sneak stuff through here, like liquids and stuff like that that you probably shouldn't have in your bag, or you should at least bring out. Guarantee you they're gonna find it over there. They are good. I completely forgot that I had my airline kit with me, which has like full-size toothpaste and shaving cream and all of that. Completely forgot. They completely missed it here in the States. And when we were reconnecting in Amsterdam, they're just emptying my bag, pulling stuff out, and like, yep, forgot about that, forgot about that, forgot about that. So, yeah, be aware. They're great over there. They're really polite. They're actually good at their job, but they will find stuff. They're very good at that. Well, I'm going to be around for a little bit if anybody has any follow-up questions or something like that. Other than that, I appreciate you all coming out. Hopefully you learned something. Yeah, if you have anything else, I'll be waiting outside, and we can continue on some discussions. Beyond that, have a wonderful rest of your night. I know Dance Comp's in here very soon. Definitely be here for that. Thanks, everyone.